Good morning, everybody. It is Terrific Tuesday, and it's terrific because my guest, Miss Sylvia, is going to make it very, very special today. We are going to celebrate the 100th birthday of a very special lady here in Ellijay. So I didn't get you a card, Miss Nell, but I did write you something. So happy 100th birthday to Nell Copeland, who has lived in the same place in Ellijay for 40 years. They're celebrating her birthday today with a party. And their goal was to get 100 cards, and I hope that they reach it. I'm going to go by and see her in a little while. But happy 100th from the crew of the Sherry Show. And I had the guys sign it, and I'm going to take that by and give it to her. And happy birthday, 100. Sylvia, are you looking forward to 100?
Oh, absolutely.
Are you looking forward to 100? Well, I don't know. You know, I have always said I want to do this until I just fall over dead on the set. And then I want the guys to get a really good shot of me just laying like this. Gosh almighty, I don't know about this. I love what I do. You love the things you're involved in. You're passionate about things that matter to you. And one of the things that matter to you is saving, spaying, neutering, and helping animals live a good life.
Definitely.
Woofstock, let's talk a little bit about that. The event just happened.
The event just happened. We had between 700 and 1,000 people come. It was a great turnout. We had no problems. You always worry about the animals getting in fights. There were no problems. We had dock diving. People tried it for the first time. One of mine did and just looked at us like, I'm just not sure about this.
That's funny.
But it was a great day, a great turnout, and we brought a lot of awareness, like for our vendors, that Freedom for Fido was there. They build fences for dogs on chains. So we had a lot of specialty groups there that were trying to get the word out how to help.
That's so important because we know just in the spay and neuter program how many healthier dogs are here because they haven't been overbred, and then end up dying, worn out because they've been bred so much.
They've been bred so much.
Yeah. Now you have your own animals. Tell me about your animals.
Right now I have 4 Rottweilers and 1 pit bull.
Rescue.
All of them. DeKalb, Cobb, Fulton County, 1 from Richardson's Rescue in South Carolina, and our pit bull is Murray, and he's from Gilmer County Animal Shelter.
And my grandson is almost 5. He has a pit bull that has been with him since before he was born. As Catherine was pregnant, Lily would lay on her stomach and guard her stomach. And Riker is like his little person, and Lily takes care of Riker. So Riker just takes care of Lily, and the 2 of them, and when people say, oh, you mean they have pit bulls around your grandchild? Yeah, the pit bull's raising the grandchild. Just loves him to death.
They're nanny dogs. You think on Little Rascals.
Yes, exactly.
Petey was a nanny dog and was a pit bull.
Exactly. So if you have seen a bad experience with a pit bull, it's probably because they were bred and fought and treated inhumanely, and then somebody finally rescued them. And often you see them where they have scars, and it's terrible.
It's awful.
Yeah, it's terrible. Now, your Rottweilers, do they have good disposition, bad dispositions?
All of them have really good dispositions. Some are better than others. Jacob is our largest. He's 105 to 110 pounds, and we can take him anywhere, around anyone. And he is the gentlest soul, but you can see the scars on him where he's been beaten, missing teeth.
Oh my gosh.
But he is a very gentle soul.
Wow. Well, I had Gizmo for 13 years, my Rottweiler that lasted the longest. She had kidney failure, but she was my dog. She didn't like males. She was very protective of me. She loved our family and all that, but if a male that was possibly just approaching me, Gizmo would growl, you know. And it's wonderful to see how they take on the leadership of protecting their owner.
They do.
They do. That's what they're bred for. So I liked that she protected me. I liked it. Now, yesterday we gave y'all some information about some, excuse me, some things that are going to be happening. Rock sale. Ball ground, we were known kind of, everybody says, oh, that's the Rock City. No, we're not the Rock City. We're the cool city. But it is going to be known as Rock City on Saturday because May the 6th from 10 to 2, right across the street from the Burger Bus, right across the street from our office, these sisters are going to bring out some of Daddy's rocks. And everybody knows that Oscar was the rock man. The rocks, a lot of them are going to be for sale, a lot of minerals, a lot of different things. Come and be there, only 10 to 2. So you get a 4-hour window that you can come and shop at the rock place. You can't go inside, but you're going to get to shop there, and that's going to be really cool. And also Thursday night, don't forget, the Inspirations will be at Shiloh Baptist Church. Not to be confused with the old Inspirations, or not to be confused with Resurrection, which is the other old Inspirations. This is a new Inspirations that sounds just like the old Inspirations. Are y'all confused now? Yeah, I thought so. I thought I could get you confused in about 90 seconds. So, but it is the really great Inspirations doing that music that you love, and they will be at Shiloh Baptist Church in Jasper. So don't forget that. Now, last night, I was at Nelson at the City Council meeting, and after the City Council meeting, I spent some time with a wonderful lady, Miss Sue. Thank you, thank you, thank you for the tour of the Nelson Marble Museum, and we're going to show some photos now. And I can tell you, the Martin family, way, 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 way back, used to make things out of chenille. And Papa Martin would load up all the bedspreads that the ladies hand tufted, and then he would take them to Dalton, and they would get paid for doing this. This is a family in Nelson who did this. And look at that hand tufted work. Is that not beautiful?
Yes.
And that was done in Nelson, Georgia. That is a bed jacket made out of chenille. I absolutely love that. And some of you folks will recognize the picture that we just showed because it's somebody's grandma and somebody's mama. And this is the Spread House Georgia-made chenille bed jacket, handcrafted in Nelson, Georgia. That is amazing to me. It is absolutely beautiful workmanship, and ladies sat at home and hand-tufted the chenille, and then one person would pick up everybody's chenille and take it to Dalton, and they would make product out of it. They would either make bedspreads or they would make the bed jackets. But is that not cool? And if you want to visit the Nelson Museum, it is open to the public. All they ask for is a donation. If you want to make a donation, they have a jar there. You put the money in. It is really, really cool, and I'm going to suggest that you do it. Nelson had a school. Now, there's the house up in the corner. Remember, I told you if I'd have lived back then, I'd have fallen in love with the man that owned that house. Yeah. He would have been my man because that house was my house. I love that house. I love that house. The history of Nelson runs deep. I think 1843. It is the oldest marble works in the state, according to what they say. And amazing, amazing history. And I had never been in their museum, but it was so cool. So to Miss Sue, thank you again. She gave me about a 15-minute tour, and you are welcome to go down there during their open hours, and just Monday through Friday stop by and get to know the nice folks at Nelson City Hall and visit, and you might see some of your family. And I'm going to ask a question. Do you know the man who was on television who was from Nelson, Georgia, that was very famous?
Actually, no.
Claude Akins.
Oh,
Claude
my goodness.
Akins. Yes. And they have a picture of when the street was named after him, and that is a Boy Scout troop in Nelson many, 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 many years ago. But it's such a neat experience, and the photography, the things that families have shared with them is just unbelievable. And the working of the mines, it's incredible. And there are some pieces of marble in there that are just over the top beautiful. There's one gorgeous female sculpture. It's of a lady and her long flowing hair. It's just beautiful, and it's made from marble. And see the tools laying there? Those are the hand tools that these artisans used to make things out of marble.
Wow.
Now, that's tough stuff. That's tough work. I guarantee you those guys went home and needed some Advil or some Tylenol. So go down to Nelson, and again, the City Hall is right at the corner of Blue Ridge and Kennesaw, and just right there in Nelson, little City Hall, and has the museum right there behind the offices. So stop in and get to know the nice folks in Nelson. We're going to get to know this nice lady a little bit more. We're not going to talk about dogs anymore. We're going to talk about a feud that's been going on for over 200 years. And this feud is serious. 12 to 15 people have lost their lives.
On the McCoy side.
On the McCoy side. And we're going to talk about that because you are related to?
The McCoys.
The McCoys. The McCoys and the Hatfields. Remember that? Over 200 years ago. So we're going to take a commercial break. And because of popular demand, we're going to give you a little bit of Dwight Samford, Mr. Ellijay's music, and he'll be back, we hope, by next week. He's still working on getting things finished at the studio, but he's getting it done. Don't you love his music?
I love his music.
Everybody does. So we're going to take a break. We're going to do a commercial and give you a little bit of Mr. Ellijay, and then we're going to be back, and we're going to talk about the Hatfields and the McCoys, and you talk about history and crazy things happening in your family, and we have the photography to share with you, which is really, really cool, generations and generations back. So stay with us. We'll be back shortly.
Whether you're in the mood for chicken strips, a delicious burger, our classic banana split, or an upside-down thick blizzard treat, we've got you covered. Hot and fresh food every day, every time, and delicious DQ soft serve make the perfect pair at your favorite place. Not fast food, fan food fast. Your Blue Ridge, Ellijay, and Jasper Dairy Queens are your meet, eat, and treat headquarters.
Thank you for choosing DQ. How may I serve you?
The mountains are calling, and they're closer than you think. Farmers Crossing in Ball Ground offers creekside lots with homes beginning in the 400s. Walking distance to downtown shopping, dining, tennis courts, Calvin Farmer Park, and local events. It also includes a beautiful hike to Long Swamp Creek. Leave the car and the worries behind. Move in by fall 2023. Call Sherry Martin at 404-375-0590 or Evelyn Calhoun at 770-733-0779.
Georgia Medical Treatment Center now has 2 locations to bring you the high-quality holistic care you've come to know and expect. We treat neck, back, and joint pain with chiropractic care and injection-based treatment without the need for surgery or prescription painkillers. Our medical weight loss program can also provide relief while ridding your body of toxins, pounds, and inches while improving your overall health. Call today for a free consultation, 770-345-2000, or go online to georgiamtc.com.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
Whether you're swimming in the sea, or splashing in the pool, making a masterpiece, or just making memories, writing a great American novel, or writing your term paper that's due tomorrow. Whatever you do in life, Farmers is here to protect it. For all your insurance needs, call Donald Curtis in Blue Ridge.
We're back. Okay. We're going to go to some Dwight Samford music. Is that right? So, yeah. Okay. We are going to share some music. And we like his music. I've Been Wrong Before. I love the old Hank Sr. stuff. I love the original stuff he writes. My favorite is Southern City Lights, because on a night in Ellijay, you just want to hear that music and you just da-da-da-da. Now, you said that y'all had him on your floats in the past.
Ellijay rocks. When the theme was, what is Ellijay, or this is Ellijay, he is definitely Ellijay.
He is definitely Ellijay. And I got so tickled because the day I met him, he said, I guess you've heard my song. And I said, what song? And he looked at me, he said, you're kidding, right? I said, no. He said, how long have you worked in Ellijay? 17 years. And you've never heard my song? No. He said, are you kidding me? I said, no. Well, then I thought he was BSing me, because I said, well, if you've written a song, sing it to me. He said, well, I'll tell you the words. And I thought, you haven't written a song, or you'd sing it to me. Well, he started telling me the words as we were in the parade with y'all. And it was hysterical, because I said, well, I guess he has. And so then he gave me a CD. And I said, I've Been Wrong Before. I said, that is the coolest song ever. And he said, I wrote that one too. And I said, well, I'll be darned. So now I have heard his song and songs and songs, and everybody who rides around with me is like, don't you get tired of that? And I said, well, no, I just keep listening over and over and over. But I love that he goes back to that traditional country music. He loves Hank Sr., he loves Merle Haggard, he loves all that stuff. But the one thing I don't get is this man is all country and he loves the Beatles, you know. So he's versatile.
He's very versatile.
He's versatile. So, yeah, but we got tickled because when in that parade, y'all invited us to do the parade. And so all through the parade, he kept looking at me. He said, you've really heard my song? I said, no. He said, you've never heard that song? I said, no. He said, you're kidding, right? I said, no. So it was hysterical. But let me tell you something else I'd never heard or done. I am going to see the Beach Boys, and I can tell you, I have not seen the Beach Boys since I was 14 years old, when I was honored to be in the Cherry Plaza Hotel with the Beach Boys for lunch on Easter Sunday.
Oh, wow.
So it's going to be very weird to walk in and see them after I haven't seen them. I want to interview them, talk to them, find out what's going on with them, because the Beach Boys, when you say the word Beach Boys, they're not boys anymore.
No.
They're old men. They're old men, but they're still on tour and they're still slamming it, knocking it dead. It's awesome.
Wow.
It's awesome. So just because we get older, and Dwight keeps saying, you know, record this, save this, I'll be gone one day, I'll be gone one day. He ain't going nowhere. He ain't going nowhere. He's got too much to do to go anywhere. But we do think about when we're gone, you know, they say that DVDs are going to be a thing of the past. Well, I have 2,000 DVDs of programs that we've done here with amazing stories of you and you and you and you and all these people in our community. Well, you have stories in our community. We need to find a way to truly preserve that. If technology changes so much that we don't play DVDs anymore and then we go from flash drives to something else, how do we capture old technology? I mean, you have these things that we're going to share in a few minutes when we talk about the Hatfields and McCoys, but we need to preserve the past while we're embracing the future. That's so
true.
Important. And so when we come back, we're going to do some Dwight music right now. This is Mr. Ellijay, and I do know his music now, and I'm very familiar with it. I had no idea who this man was. But I can tell you, he's wild, he's crazy. I know y'all love him, and I appreciate the fact that when I have to be out, he has now sat in twice and done the show. And of course, he changes it to the Mr. Ellijay Show. Here we go with a little bit of his music.
Folks, we thank you for coming to Ellijay today. My name is Dwight Samford. Some call me Mr. Ellijay. Here's a little song I wrote. I hope you learn it note for note. The bank says it's foreclosing and the pickup needs repair. The LP tank's on zero and my will is almost there. The hope I had left with you when you walked out the door. I would say things can't get worse, but I've been wrong before. The postman brought a letter. He said he needs my signature. He don't know you had to go, and the way you left me here. I told him I don't love you, oh, but the Lord knows I still do. And He knows just what I feel inside and the things I'm going through. My brother said there's a bottle that'll make this go away. You could drink until it's over, or until my dying day. I could do all this and make believe I don't care anymore. And I could hope it don't get worse again, but I've been wrong before. The boss man called from work today. He left a message on my phone. I called in to talk to him to see what's going on. They're laying off across the plant, employees by the score. I would say things can't get worse, but I've been wrong before. My father said there's a bottle that'll make this go away. I could drink until it's over, or until my dying day. I could do all this and tell myself I don't care anymore. And I could hope it don't get worse again, but I've been wrong before. And our country's going straight to hell on a highway paved with hope. And if we keep playing around with this, we'll hang by our own rope. Thank you. Hello, folks. Mr. Ellijay here, Dwight Samford. In 1969, I sang in front of the whole gymnasium up there, the old gym we used to have, for the seventh grade graduation. Miss Marie Ho put me out there in front of everybody, and the place was packed full of students and moms and dads and aunts and uncles. If you were there that night, comment. If you wasn't there that night, then I'd like for you to comment. And it's called All I Have to Offer You Is Me. It's one of the very first songs I ever learned. Before you take another step, there's something you should know about the years ahead and how they'll be. You'll be living in a world where roses hardly ever grow. 'Cause all I have to offer you is me. There'll be Sweetheart, I'll give you all my love in every way I can. But make sure that's what you want while you're still free. The only gold I have for you is in this wedding band. 'Cause all I have to offer you is me. There'll be no mansions waiting on the hill with crystal chandeliers, and there'll be no fancy clothes for you to wear. Everything I have is standing here in front of you to see. All I have to offer you is me. All I have to offer you is me. It's on Pumpkin Center CD. Let me know what you think.
Okay, Miss Sylvia, are you happy you got to see Dwight?
I
She
did.
loves his music. She appreciates everything he does. So that was from me to you. Now, and again, happy 100th birthday to Nell. Happy birthday from ETC. Now, let's talk about something that is really lots of history. But right now, I don't know if you know about it, but Fox and Friends, and Fox has a story about the Hatfields and McCoys going on right now. And I've seen some of the people who are the generational. How many generations are you? What's the generation?
From the original feuders, I would be considered 8th generation.
Okay. And I'm the 6th generation on my family as far as being alive and well. And I see my mic was, I know better than that to cover my mic up. So I'm 6, I can remember 6 generations back. How far back can you remember?
I can remember 5 generations back.
And the Hatfields and McCoys feud began. Can you tell a little short story about that?
The original feud was over the Civil War.
And we saw families split with the Civil
They
War, where
did.
one went Union, one went...
My family lived in Kentucky, and Kentucky was considered a neutral ground, but they more or less sided with the side of the Union. Virginia, which when you...
Shame on them. Can't believe I said that.
Virginia was considered Confederate. And at that time, Virginia encompassed everywhere across the Appalachians and even on the west side, which is now West Virginia, but didn't become West Virginia until the middle of the Civil War.
And this is the first generation photos. Okay, tell me about these two people.
This is my grandmother's grandparents.
Okay.
Pleasant McCoy and Sally. And they lived in Pike County in one of the original ancestral homes, which is where my grandmother was born. Pleasant McCoy was pretty interesting. He wound up going down into town into Pikeville, and you figure they were true hillbillies. They lived up in the hills, and he happened to die in town in Pikeville.
Oh.
Well, it was during the winter, and they had a big snowstorm, and they could not get him back. So he was put up in an ice house for the winter. And
Seriously?
Yes. And when
Oh
the
my gosh.
spring came and everything thawed out, they took him up to bury him. And he's buried out behind the old ancestral home across Brushy Creek.
Okay, and then this generation is...
This is my grandmother's parents. That's Harlow and Mousie McCoy.
Okay.
I don't know a whole...
Why did they name her Mousie?
It was a family name.
Okay.
It wasn't even a nickname. It was actually
Wow.
her actual name.
Look at that collar on her. Somebody did some beautiful handiwork on that beautiful collar she has on.
And back then, you know,
What year were they born?
1865.
Okay. So that's about the generation that Calvin Farmer was in Ball Ground. He was born in the 1870s, I think. So pretty much the generation that we would remember that. Yeah, okay. And then this one is a family funeral.
That was my grandmother's father's funeral. The tall lady in the center is my grandmother, Hazel, and they're at the Harlow McCoy Cemetery. It's in a different spot. It's not where Pleasant was buried.
There you go. There you go.
And then the person next to her is my grandfather, Roy Schuler, and other family members there.
Now, when somebody married into the McCoys, were they in fear of their life because there was feuding going on?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, because we've said 12 to 15 people have died because of this feud.
And they have. And if a McCoy married into the Hatfield family, which had happened, they no longer were a McCoy. They were disowned completely, and they became a Hatfield.
Okay, and the book that you've brought to share with us is the McCoys, Their Story. Is this in publication today?
No.
Okay, how would people get this, find this? Have you searched eBay to see if anybody has a copy?
These copies were ones that were given to family members. This was my grandmother's, so I was able to get it from her. The story was originally, it was a manuscript written over 15 years by Truda McCoy. She was born in 1902. She, at the age of about 18 to 20, became a teacher. She was a distant McCoy relative, so was able to get some information, but then married a McCoy, direct descendant, and then had better access. Over 15 years, she wrote a 296-page manuscript. It was then sent to New York, and they...
Factual from the original people.
From the original people that she went and interviewed and was able to get paperwork and verify. And in this book, everyone she spoke to about each story is cited in this book. And the genealogy in here goes from the original feuders down all the way down to my grandmother.
And the original ones were in the 1700s?
No, the original ones were during the Civil War, which would have been 1863 in there.
And were people angry with her because she put this together and did a manuscript to discuss things that were not to be discussed?
They weren't angry. The McCoy story had never been told. The Hatfields
Who was at fault? The Hatfields killed a McCoy? Is that how the feud started?
The very first one, the Hatfields killed a McCoy.
Okay, so could we call the Hatfields the bad guy to begin with?
Well, from a
Would we
McCoy
get in trouble?
Yes.
We might get in trouble. Yeah, okay. So anyway, the first death was a McCoy from a Hatfield.
Yes.
Okay.
And that occurred, Harmon McCoy, this was during the Civil War. He was not on either side. He actually owned 2 slaves. He stayed home in Kentucky and became part of the Home Guard. And most areas had some sort of Home Guard. Raynell McCoy, Asa Harmon's brother, he went with the Union and fought with them, and Devil Anse Hatfield was his commanding officer. During the war, there were periods where they would come back home. Well, Devil Anse at one point came back home and stayed, and he started a home guard, and it was known as the Logan Wildcats. Well, the Logan Wildcats wound up going after Asa Harmon, and they killed him.
Why did they go after him?
Because he was on the other side.
Wow. And I'm bringing this forward 240 years now to a point of today's world, today's history. We have to learn from the past. And because we have all this feuding going on with different things now, it's like, we had the Black Lives Matter, we had this, we had all this stuff going on. And in today's world, there have been deaths after deaths after deaths after deaths. But this, over 200 years ago, there were deaths because you didn't agree with somebody.
Right.
You can't kill somebody because you don't agree with them, y'all. We gotta play nice.
And this wasn't the only families that did this. This was one of many. They just became better known.
Boy, were they better known, because Fox has got a big to-do going on with it. And I love that you have all the documentation. You have the real deal of how generation after generation after generation. Is there ever you have family reunions now. Is there ever a chance that at a family reunion somebody's going to say, well, why don't we just talk to the Hatfields?
The Hatfields, you know, there is still tension at times. And I can remember back in my grandmother's day, they walked opposite sides of the street.
Really?
So they wouldn't even walk on the same side of the street at that time.
Yeah.
There's, you know, and there's an unwritten truce. You know, they don't still feud.
Right.
But I'm sure there are still family members who have hard feelings. And it was a hard time for a long time.
Wow. Well, I don't know if you watched the show last week when we were talking about this, but I was having a conversation with somebody one day. We were talking about my grandfather and all his brothers made moonshine. And somebody said, well, you know, your Uncle Guy killed Boss Hubbard. And I said, do what? And I thought, I've known all these families all my life, and I didn't know. And they said it was over 50 pounds of sugar because they were making whiskey. And I'm like, do what? And they said, well, he didn't mean to kill him, but he hit him and he fell and he hit his head on a rock and he died. And I thought, all my life I've heard about my moonshining granddaddy, but I never heard that story, that there was a death from it. And they said, yeah, he built 7 years in Reidsville State Prison because of it.
Oh, my
I didn't know
goodness.
that. So it's so cool to see somebody, you have your family history, it's documented, it's all right there. You've got the real deal going on. That is so cool. Now tell us how that got published.
Truda's, there was actually a television interview, very similar to this in the local Pikeville, and they were talking about how the Hatfields had just published their side of the story.
Have you read it?
I have not read it.
Okay.
But you can go to West Virginia and to the university and they do a play.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Oh, wow. How cool is that?
Every summer they have the play there.
Oh, my gosh.
And I asked...
And it's the Hatfields version.
Yes, and I asked one of
Not
my relatives...
the version of the McCoys, which would be the truth. No, I'm just kidding, y'all. Don't throw rocks at me. Don't.
Well, I asked one of my relatives, and at the time I was younger, she was older, and she had a doctorate degree, so she just knew a lot of the history. So she went and watched the play, and I asked her how she felt. And she said, well, I wanted to get a gun and shoot them all.
My gosh.
And this is a lady who wore suits all the time.
Oh, my goodness gracious. So, yeah, okay.
So the story...
So it does make the emotions and the
it does.
hostility flow, yeah.
But the Truda was, she had written this manuscript, and during
Over
this...
200 pages, is that what you said?
296 pages.
Wow.
And when she died, she willed it to her son. And once they heard this interview, now this was 1974. We're not talking, well, I guess to me that's not ancient history.
It's the year I gave birth the last time. Yeah.
So it was during that year that this came about, and the Historical Preservation Society of Pike County actually got with Paul, and they developed this book out of the manuscript.
And I didn't even look. How many pages is it?
This one's probably 290 some.
Okay.
It has all of the genealogy
And
in
I
the back.
love great photography. Now, who is that lady?
The lady is Truda McCoy. That is the lady
who actually wrote the manuscript.
Wrote this manuscript.
Yes.
The little house at the top was where my grandmother was born. I've been to that house and actually went inside.
And the house still stands today.
It still stands and is part of the Historical Society. They have like a McCoy Hatfield historical sites. And then the church at the bottom was where a lot of the
Beautiful
different...
church. Beautiful church.
It actually acted at the time as a courthouse and was where a lot of the hearings were held.
Beautiful. Now, tell me about these people.
I'd have to look. This was Asa Harmon.
He was the one that was...
His name was Bud. This was Raynol's son.
Okay.
Named after his brother, which very often the family names someone after their brother. The story with Bud was that he he was one of them at the feuds that had stabbed.
Now the men are getting more handsome. The one,
Oh, yeah.
the men are getting more handsome. Tell me
They-
about these two gentlemen.
This is, I have to look around because I don't always remember all the names. This is Jim McCoy and Sam. Both of them are brothers of
Okay.
Raynal.
Okay. Okay.
So they were very involved in the first
From the
feuds.
early 1900s.
From the mid 1860s. And to me, this over here, this guy, doesn't he look? Remember the real McCoys on TV?
Yeah.
Doesn't he look like him?
Walter Brennan.
Yes.
That is so funny.
Too.
That is so funny. I love this. That is so cool. Now, there's no way people could get a copy of this book, is there?
I have not been able to find any additional copies. The gentleman is my great grandfather there, and that picture sat on my grandmother's dresser for all
Wow.
of my childhood.
Wow.
And the other two are family reunions.
Wow. I love this. Okay, today, all these years later, what'd you say, 8 generations ago? Okay. Out of that 8 generations, how many, when you go to the family reunion, how many people show up and how many people still care about this?
The family reunions generally have, there's usually over 100 people there because most of them are traveling from out of town. And we hold it in a little schoolhouse up in the hills. It takes a long time to get there.
Wow.
The nice thing is they bring all these pictures, like they'll bring pictures of baptisms in the river, and they bring all the history over and over and over.
And then you can take a picture. Isn't that great with an iPhone? You can take a picture, then you can come print it. Yeah.
These were actually all given to me at one of the family reunions.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
It's just really great how they do that. There is a book out now that was written about the 40s and 50s called Brushy Creek Revisited, which would have been when my grandmother grew up there and my mother grew up there, that I've been trying to get a copy of, but so
and
far.
it's called Brushy Creek Revisited.
Revisited.
Now, Pikeville, the population of Brushy Creek, what's the population?
Brushy Creek is very small. You know, it's up in the hills. There were probably several hundred people scattered at their time, scattered throughout the mountains. And it would take, you know, people lived a mile or two in between, so it could take some time to get to a neighbor's house.
So no HOA, and you didn't care what your neighbors were doing?
No.
No HOA, and you didn't care what your neighbors were doing? You didn't care if somebody was sitting on the front porch picking with a guitar?
No.
No, and a banjo, no. How often do you get to travel back and visit this?
Every couple of years, I'll go back, and it's the Raynal McCoy and his wife Sally, the Devil Anns and his group came in and he actually burned their house down. And Sally, his wife, was older, and they just beat her and hit her in the head and busted her head open with the butt end of a rifle.
Oh my gosh.
And they left her there for dead. Also, one of his daughters.
So there's a reason they're feuding.
Yeah.
There's still a reason there's anger.
Alifair was shot going out to the well trying to get water to put the fire out. And she was a female. So 2 women died during that. Raynal got the other children out and his son out, one of his sons.
And they burned the house because they were McCoys?
Yes.
Purely because it was the Hatfields and McCoys feuding?
McCoys feuding.
Wow.
So Raynal moved into town into a house that became a tea house. So that was neat because you can go into town and actually go into the house he moved into. So it's
Interesting. Now, were there, I mean, back then, I'm sure there was one sheriff for probably multiple counties, and you didn't have 911. Was there any help for these families as they were being attacked?
Well, not as they were being attacked. You were on
There
your
was no
own.
protection.
No.
How do you stop people who come in and burn your home and bludgeon wives to death, and how do you stop that?
You own guns.
Okay. That's the word I was waiting on. You protect yourself.
Yes.
You bear arms, and we have the right in America to carry a gun. I was so hoping you would say that because we have the right to protect ourselves and to protect our family. And had those women had guns, maybe they could have shot them out.
And many of the women back then
Carried
were
guns.
sharpshooters.
Now let's talk about the women in your family. You said they were very strong.
Sally McCoy, who was Reynolds' wife, was very religious, and I mean, she could talk her family and her sons into not going to fight, and so they did use the court system frequently. Most people have heard at some point that the Hatfields and McCoys feud started over 5 pigs. And what had happened was one of the sons was going to Aunt Betty's house, which she lived in Stringtown. As he went by Floyd Hatfield's house, the pigs were in the pen. Now, at that time, they would let their pigs loose up in the hills all winter, and that's how the pigs got fattened up. They'd bring them in right before slaughter, give them some corn, and then slaughter them. Well, they all had a different brand, and by brand I don't mean the fire, you know. They actually would clip their ears a certain way. So with the McCoys, one ear was clipped off, you know, on an angle, and the other ear had a slit, and that was the McCoy brand. So whenever they had seen that these pigs were there, they actually took them to court. Well, nobody would serve on
It was the McCoy's pigs in the Hatfield pen.
Right.
Okay.
So the McCoys.
Very identifiable pigs because they had the brand.
Right.
Okay.
So
nobody's doing anything illegal on the McCoy side.
No, they went to court.
Yes.
So when they went to court, nobody would serve on the jury. Because you know, they didn't want to get in the middle of the Hatfield McCoys. You know, Asa Harmon had already
Because they've already proved they're killing people. Yeah.
So they wound up having 6 Hatfields and 6 McCoys on the jury.
Are you kidding?
No. So one of the McCoys had married into the Hatfield family, and so he was caught lie swearing.
Oh, wow.
And so they didn't get the pigs. Well, they went back. Raina wanted to go after them, after the Hatfields.
After all, your pigs were the way you fed your family.
It was a big deal.
That's a big deal, yeah.
Well, Sally talked them out of going.
Wow.
So that's how strong she was, and she was very religious. And she kept a tight handle on her family. Not tight enough.
Not tight enough.
Because Roseanne wound up going off with Johnsy.
Oh, wow.
And she wound up pregnant out of marriage. And that is when Reynolds sent his sons after Rosanna, they were captured, they were tied to the pawpaw trees, and execution style killed 3 of his sons.
Gosh. So now we're up to 5 deaths.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was quite a few.
Wow. Wow. That's crazy. And that's in our free America, we have families feuding, and rightfully feuding, but kind of who started it, and it started with them splitting because of the Civil War. Can we say that's the exact point that it started happening?
It did.
And then it went here and here and here, and it just kept going.
It just kept going.
That's crazy.
You know, every little thing wound up becoming a big issue. And I mean, to the point in the end, the 13 Hatfields that killed the last 2 sons, there was a bounty out on them. And at that time, Devil Ann's bounty was $500, which was a lot of money.
A lot of money back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they had everybody out hunting them.
And did anybody ever serve any time for the murders that were committed with this rivalry?
Usually what happened is they wound up dead.
Okay. So maybe a McCoy found them and took care of it themselves and saved the jury time and energy and saved the court's money?
One of them got put into jail, and they think either money was exchanged and the jailer let him out, but when they got out, the McCoys found him and killed him.
I can see that happening, yeah. Yeah. Have you ever watched the story Murder in Cayuga County in Georgia? It's a true story.
No.
Okay, it's one of those same things happen. They let somebody out and da-da-da-da-da. And we saw that. I mean, we saw it happening. It's like my granddaddy was a deputy sheriff after he had been a moonshiner, you know, because things were different then. So, but this is, to this stage of the game in the 40s and 50s when your grandmother and your mother were coming up, through the 60s, did it mellow any? Through the 70s, did it mellow any? Is it still pretty?
It went from the Civil War all the way up to 1890, 1900, where they were still killing each other. So it lasted.
So 25 years it lasted for murder.
40.
Wow.
It lasted about 40 years where they were still killing each other, and then finally, you know, they kind of just stayed to their own selves, and it quieted down. Not that they liked each other, but
That's so weird. Now, how many family members do you know a Hatfield married a McCoy and McCoy married a Hatfield? Who was the troublemaker that fell in love with one of those scoundrels?
okay. So they would go into town every 2 years, and it was for either the primary election or, you know, some sort of election event. And they would all get together. Well, the men brought all the moonshine, and the women brought all the food. Well, Roseanne McCoy wound up going off the very day she met Johnsy Hatfield, and Johnsy said he would marry her and took her home. So they crossed the Tug River.
So in a day, she fell in love with him.
Yes.
In a day. So love at first sight.
Not a good thing.
Yeah, I can relate.
So when he took her home, his dad would not let her marry. Now, Rosanna was 21 and Johnsy was 18, so he was still under his dad's control. Eventually, Roseanne wound up pregnant. She went home. Her dad didn't want her there, so she went to live with Aunt Betty.
Because she was carrying a Hatfield.
Right.
Okay.
She had the baby, a little girl, but the little girl wound up with measles and pneumonia and died.
Oh, wow.
And Roseanne was just devastated. Johnsy wound up finding her later and asked to marry her, and she was done. She wanted nothing to do with him. Well, it wasn't long. Johnsy was riding back and forth, and he had gone by a school building, and Nancy McCoy, who at the time was 16, and now Johnsy's in his 20s, he started giving her rides home, and he wound up marrying her.
Wow. So he went from a McCoy to a McCoy after the McCoy said, no, you didn't stand by me when I was pregnant, so I'm done with you.
Yep.
There you go. Ding. So there was a smart McCoy and a dumb McCoy. So, all families have it. We all have it. Yeah. Now, this is so interesting, and this is real America. This is really documented America. Feuding and fighting and killing over whether you are supporting this war or whatever. You know, we've lived through the Korean War, we've lived through the Vietnam War, the Civil War, split families. We in America today, what we should take away from this today is that we are in a world created by God for us to all live in harmony. And maybe we need to work at living in harmony and see how that goes, because we don't want to end up like the Hatfields and McCoys 200 years later, people saying, did you hear about that feud that started because of an election and because of this, because of that? There's no point in any of this.
It's not.
No, there's no point in any of it. And it still goes on today to a point that they, you know, and it's like you said, they stay away from each other.
And I'm sure we all know families here that have the same animosity toward one another over...
Just not using a gun and killing them, yeah.
We hope.
Yeah, we hope. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. It's amazing. This is, I've heard about the Hatfields and McCoys all my life, and when I saw the thing after you were here and we were talking about you were going to come and do this, and a week later I turned on Fox News and they had, I can't remember if they had the Hatfields on, I think. And they were sitting there, and they just looked like some of my kinfolks, you know, just folks. And I was like, dang. So it is still interesting in America for us to look back that 200 and some odd years ago, people were killing each other over disagreements, and we have to stop that right now today. You know, it has to stop. We got to get along. We got to get along. We got to get along, or we got to stay away from each other. And I like to staying away from each other. You don't fight, don't feud, don't do all that. I was laughing, you know, everybody knows I don't drink. There's a reason I don't drink. If I did, I might have a temper. But we look back at, we've all been wronged by somebody. We've all made mistakes somehow, some way. But this family and the Hatfields took it very serious because lives, and when you said those 2 women were murdered, I can't imagine how, when a jury couldn't find anybody guilty, how do you go home and say, well, Ma and Granny or Ma and Aunt so-and-so died, let's just suck it up? You can't do that.
Well,
that would be so hard.
Then part of the issue, too, was during the Civil War, West Virginia was formed. You know, so they split off from Virginia. Well, now the Hatfields, they were from West Virginia at this point. So you have a lot of the events happening in Kentucky, and the Kentucky state had no jurisdiction whatsoever over West Virginia. So it's not like you could just cross over. They even had one of the Hatfields, he had a saloon, and he was selling bootleg liquor. Well, he did it on the state line. So when Kentucky would come, he'd step over to the West Virginia room, and when West Virginia came, he stepped over to the Kentucky
smart
room.
Man, see? That's pretty creative, yeah.
Eventually, both sides figured that out, and they went together. But
now I know why the Rebel Inn was so close to the county line here. That may have worked there too. You know, it is so interesting, and I hope, I don't know if any of y'all will ever get a copy of this book, but it is called The McCoys, Their Story, and it's by Truda Williams McCoy, edited by Leonard W. Roberts, and look for it. If you're in a bookstore, look for it. It is an interesting find, and I love that you have this, and I love that you shared it with us. And you've got to come back again because this was fun.
it was
This
fun.
was really fun. Thank you so much. Thank you, and keep your hard work up at Focus. And again, do you have any events coming up? We've got just about 50 seconds. So.
We don't right now. We just had our spay-neuter sale. We sold 31 certificates. We did a vaccination clinic that we did 421 vaccinations in 4 hours.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
And they were all low cost. We'll do another one this fall.
Keep up the hard work. Thank you so very, very much. Thank you for joining us today. And I want to remind you that the Inspirations are going to be in Jasper on Thursday night at Shiloh Baptist Church. And please don't forget the rock sale. It's going to be happening in Ball Ground, and that is going to be from 10 to 2 on Saturday. It's time for us to get out of here. We'll see you again soon, only on ETC.